The shots were truly stunning, and I was so expecting her to follow that up with, "What are those?" Hey fellow Force users and fellow Wakandans, what is up? It's Jasmine, the AhsokaTanoFan. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome to my YouTube channel if this is the first time you're here. So guys, we're gonna be reviewing Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I have a Black Panther Marvel shirt that I wanted to wear so badly for this video, but I just, for the life of me, could not find it. Is there anything more frustrating than that? Let's not talk about it. I'm gonna get upset. I did see the movie last night and thought that it was a solid movie. There were a lot of great moments, so we're gonna delve into those moments today. We're also gonna talk a little bit about some parts I think could have been done better. For those who haven't watched the movie, I definitely don't recommend watching this video because I am giving a spoiler-filled review, just as a heads up. That's my disclaimer there. It is directed once again by Ryan Coogler, who did direct the first movie, but of course this time he was dealt a really tough hand, which is trying to make this movie after Chadwick Boseman's untimely passing. But they incorporated it into the story really well, which is something as a viewer I was wondering, how are they going to handle his passing? It's not like Fast and Furious where Paul Walker had already recorded some scenes. Chadwick wasn't, unfortunately, to my knowledge, able to record any scenes, so the way that they were able to write him out the story I think was really done beautifully. So we're going to get into that in a second. But overall, I really liked the cinematography in this show. The shots were truly stunning. There were a lot of slow motion shots. There was underwater shots. It was very visually stunning. There was great acting. There was some truly heartfelt moments, some emotional moments, but they also had some humor as well to help balance that out. So let's delve into more of the topics from this movie now. So number one, when you see this movie, you think of grief. Grief was handled beautifully in this movie. From the opening sequence, all the pictures were filled with Chadwick. It was silent, yet it spoke volumes. It was really just touching, and everybody was just completely quiet and just super attentive to the movie. Well, I guess you also have to be quiet because it is a theater. Everybody was super focused, and you could tell that it was emotional. They show exactly what went down with King T'Challa, or more or less, they basically say that he died of an undisclosed illness. In the movie, we see Shuri actually try and save him. There comes a point where they basically tell her that she has to be at his bedside because he's not going to make it, but she still is trying to save him, and in so doing misses out on being by his side. I almost wonder if it's a reflection of how the actress Letitia Wright maybe feels in real life. Maybe she feels like she wishes she had more time with him to be there by his side and to help him through his struggle, because obviously nobody knew that he was going through what he was going through. Chadwick, he kept it a secret. You just kind of feel her emotion, her guilt, and how all the characters feel, really. I definitely don't think there was much acting there, to be honest. I think the tears were very much real tears felt for Chadwick's passing. You feel like the theme of the movie is grief and this idea of moving on, moving forward. You even see Shuri mention that a few times as well, that the Black Panther is gone, we have to move forward. But then it's also said in the movie that just because King T'Challa is gone doesn't mean that the Black Panther has to be. And I suppose that's true as well when we talk about Chadwick. He has tragically passed away, but the character, and I think what that character means and represents for everybody, still lives on. So Chadwick has truly left a legacy, and you feel that legacy in this movie. Even the title, Wakanda Forever, implies that Wakanda and the Black Panther still lives on. King T'Challa is not the only one that we see pass away in this movie. Queen Ramonda also tragically passes away. You saw her share a lot of heartfelt moments with her daughter. I love that we got to see more of their relationship fleshed out. And when Shuri is taken by Namor's people, we're going to talk more about Namor in a second, she is so distraught that she strips Okoye of her titles. You can tell that she's kind of taken aback by it. She's very emotional. And she says, "My queen, I've given everything." The queen basically talks about how she has lost a daughter and a son all in the same year, all in the same time frame, and haven't I given everything? And I thought that scene was so emotional. You guys know the one I'm talking about. Angela Bassett just nailed it. Her acting was phenomenal during this movie. And can we take a moment to appreciate her arms? So toned, right? I need a workout routine. But you ultimately see when she dies, it's kind of her sacrificing herself to save Riri, the scientist, who we're also going to get to a bit later. She really is just somebody, the queen, who has sought to protect those around her daughter, the scientist who maybe perhaps reminds her of her daughter, and her people overall. Before she passes away, early on in the movie, you see her try and get Shuri to grieve her brother's passing, but Shuri doesn't really even want to acknowledge it. She kind of has it in her head that the Black Panther's gone and that's it, we gotta move on. And so it's the Queen Ramonda that tries to get her to go through the process of grief and go through the ritual. And the ritual is not something that Shuri completes until the end of the movie. We see her by the bonfire, and this scene carries on into the post-credit / mid-credit scene. I think that scene was so powerful because you see her finally getting the chance to grieve not only the loss of her brother, but also the loss of her mother. And while we're on it, during that post-credit scene, we also see that King T'Challa had a son with Nakia, who Nakia was raising in secret. He basically refers to himself as Prince T'Challa. And one thing I should mention here is earlier on in the movie, when Queen Ramonda and Shuri were by the bonfire about to do the ritual, one thing that Ramonda does say to Shuri is that there's something you should know about your brother. And now, by the post-credit scene, we know what she was talking about. He did have a son in secret with Nakia, who obviously would be Shuri's nephew. And so you kind of wonder in the future where that little boy is going to end up. Is he going to end up becoming the king? Is he going to maybe wear the Black Panther suit alongside Shuri, his auntie? Or is it going to be kind of a challenge to the throne kind of thing? Because we know from shows like House of the Dragon, for instance, there's all kinds of challenges to the throne, but usually how it works is the firstborn son of the king is the one who gets the throne. Overall, the idea of grief was definitely felt during this movie. They handled it well. The only downside I would say is that for some people, you might feel like the movie is a little bit slower paced. It does have a runtime of 2 hours and 40 minutes, so there were a couple times in the movie that felt a little bit long. That's kind of, I guess, the process of grief. It is a slow process, so that might have perhaps translated into a bit slower of a movie compared to the first Black Panther. Okay, so let's delve into the characters a little bit more here. So we are introduced to Namor during this movie, who is the king of an underwater world called Talokan. I like how they give us backstory on him. This movie helps us see him as not just a villain, it's not so black and white like that. We kind of see him as a sort of gray character in between villain and hero. He's somebody that wants to protect his people. So you see what his upbringing was like, what he went through, what happened to his people, his mother. Despite coming from completely different worlds, Namor and Shuri perhaps share more in common than you might think. Namor got his name because of what someone called him when he was a child, which was El Niño Sin Amor, which means the child without love. And so he just dropped all the first part and just called himself Namor. He was called the child without love. And then you have Shuri, who's a child who's lost everything that she loves. So I really felt the characters kind of had parallel worlds almost. They both dealt with a lot of loss and are both trying to look after their people. I like that he showed Shuri his world. I like that Shuri was open to it. It shows that she is open-minded. So like Namor, Shuri had great character development as well. We saw her go through a lot this movie. She lost her brother and her mother. And even the man M'Baku, he says to her, "You've gone through too much in this world to still be considered a child." That line really kind of hit me deep because it does show just how much she's grown up, and she's really had to step up very quickly because of everything that's happening around her. You see her finally able to replicate the herb, which allows her to eventually don the suit. But her journey, it's not quite the same as her brother's. You see that she's actually kind of tempted by the dark side here by none other than Killmonger himself. It was great seeing Killmonger again. It actually made me realize how much I kind of missed him in this movie. He was such a great villain. Who knows? Maybe one day they'll find a way to bring him back. It wouldn't be the first time that Marvel has done such a thing. But anyways, she's tempted by Killmonger, who basically says, "Are you going to be like your brother, or are you going to be like me and handle business?" I actually like this perspective that they took with Shuri grappling with vengeance. It seems very relatable. Here you have someone who's been through so much and her mother was just killed. Makes sense that she'd want to go after her mother's killer. Nakia was basically trying to warn her that her seeking vengeance would not fill the hole in her heart. It would only grow larger until it consumes her. to which Shuri answers something along the lines of, "It already has." Another deep line. Sometimes in your desire for vengeance, it takes you so far down the rabbit hole that you almost get lost. The hole grows so large that you just become consumed and surrounded by darkness that you don't even know what's light anymore. Shuri was perhaps at risk of that sort of thing happening, but then by the end, when she spares Namor, you see that she has basically taken Nakia's advice as well as the advice of her mother in the afterlife. Shuri ultimately decided vengeance was not worth it if it was going to perhaps cost her everything, and it ended up working out for her because she made an alliance with Namor and his people rather than killing him. So the only thing is, when she offered Namor that deal, I questioned a little bit why he yielded. If you remember that battle, Namor's people were actually winning, and so it was kind of odd for her to say, "If you yield, I'll spare you and I'll make you this deal that will save your people." Perhaps he wants to use the Wakandans as somewhat of a shield to the US government, because he knows maybe it's in his best interest for he and his people to remain a secret, and they'll rely on Wakanda when needed because they are very powerful. But if anything goes wrong, the American government is most likely to target Wakanda first. I guess the way that it happened maybe felt a little bit quick to me. The other thing about the story that I kind of questioned was his desire to kill the scientist, who we know as Riri, aka Ironheart. We're going to get to her in a sec. We know that she developed a vibranium detecting device that was being used by the CIA. But in my mind, I'm thinking, why would Namor want to kill that scientist because she's behind that device? Why would his first thought not just be, "I want to go after the American government, who's going to help me do it," kind of thing? I think I would have liked to have seen them fight the American government versus fighting each other over the scientist. I'm not sure that part of the story really made sense to me, but I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just tripping. So we're finally introduced to Riri, aka Ironheart, who is no doubt going to have a big role to play going forward in the Young Avengers. Ironheart is a character from the comics who caught Tony Stark's attention because she manufactured a suit that was even better than his. She's actually set to have her own Disney Plus live action series. It was nice to see her in this movie. She definitely did a great job, the actress Dominique Thorne. She was funny, she was cute. I like seeing her work with the Wakandans, especially Shuri. They're both smart and tech savvy. My only issue is, I suppose I wish there was a little bit more build up to her before seeing her go into battle. If you think about someone in her position, she's super smart, she's got the attention of the CIA, but she doesn't really know just how much attention she has on her. And then one day the Wakandans just drop in and say, "You're coming with us." And then not only that, then she ends up going to battle, and not just with humans, extraordinary people, superhuman alien type people. And then just right away, she's just able to kind of do that, I guess, and fly her suits and then take out all these people. For somebody who has never been in battle before, it maybe seems like too rushed of a build-up for her. If you think of Iron Man, for example, even when he made the first suit, it was when he was in captivity and it took a while for him to do it. He had a lot of failed attempts after captivity before he ended up actually going into battle. Even with Black Panther, he didn't start off right away going to battle. He lost his father, and there were these series of things that happened to him that made him become the badass Black Panther that we know. In Shuri's case, last movie, and even in the Avengers movies, she's been like very tech savvy, but then all of a sudden in this movie, bam, she loses her brother and her mother. So now she has to step up and don the suit and become the Black Panther. And all these examples I named, there's kind of a build up before the character, I guess, goes into battle and fights and becomes who they're supposed to become. Whereas with Riri, it kind of seems to happen like very fast. I would expect that someone in her position would be like very shocked and kind of shaken almost. And maybe not in this movie, but maybe in her movie, get to the point where she actually goes into battle. Perhaps a big difference is early on with Marvel movies like Iron Man, that's just it. Those characters had their own movies first before showing up in movies like the Avengers. In Riri's case, Ironheart, we're kind of having the reverse. We're having her show up first in Black Panther and go into battle right away before she gets her own movie or her own show. Anyways, that's kind of just what I would say. I think she's a great character and she's got so much potential, and I can't wait to see more of her. You really saw a lot more backstory with the Dora Milaje as well, especially Okoye being stripped of her titles by the Queen. You just see how much that affected her and just how much being in the Dora Milaje means to these women. It's not just a job, it's a vow, it's a life. And I think that moment where she kind of puts her spear down, you kind of hear the echoes fade out as she walks away. That was her last act as the Dora Milaje, and then as the echoes fade, she fades in the distance. The camera shows her kind of walking out. That was like a very powerful and sad scene. But of course we see that even though she's no longer officially a part of the Dora Milaje, she still practices the same tenets, if you you will, and she still does fight for good and fight for her people. And last but not least, the one thing that I wish we could have seen more of this movie was Shuri's classic one-liners, baby. They had a perfect opportunity, I think, when Namor appeared to the Queen and Shuri. She asked the Queen, her mother, "Did you see that guy's feet? Did you see his wings?" And I was so expecting her to follow that up with, "What are those?"
And what are these?
The real question is, what are those? Why do you have your toes out in my lap?
You know, prime missed opportunity. Or even when she meets her friend again, Everett Ross, you know, I kind of expect her to say, "Oh, good to see you again, colonizer."
All right, where am I?
Don't scare me like that, colonizer.
Shuri had a lot of good one-liners last movie that I felt, you know, there were a couple opportunities for that this movie that they maybe perhaps missed. And of course, guys, we also have to talk about the appearance of Contessa Fontaine, whose full name is La Contessa Valentina Allegra de la Fontaine, which, whew, that is a mouthful. I honestly had her written down in my notes for this video. I don't know how I forgot to reference that part of my notes. Super annoying, but I was not about to do my hair and makeup again, so here it is. We're gonna talk about Contessa Fontaine, the director of the CIA, and who also happens to be the ex-wife of Everett Ross, which that was kind of a twist we weren't expecting. This is not the first time that we've seen her though. We also saw her in Falcon and Winter Soldier, where she recruited John Walker, aka US Agent, and she also recruited Yelena at the end of Black Widow, if you remember that post-credit scene, and she sent Yelena after Clint, basically setting up Clint to take the blame for the Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff's death. She definitely had a big role to play in this movie and is no doubt gonna play an even bigger role in the future. They're setting her up for something. Either way, that woman is shady and definitely somebody to watch out for. Overall, I would say this is a solid movie and sequel, and definitely worth a watch. I'm looking forward to the future of the franchise and seeing where these stories go. So anyways, guys, as always, let me know down below in the comments what you thought of this movie and perhaps what you're looking forward to from the future of this franchise. And as always, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys for the next video. Until next time, guys, take care and see you soon.